Welcome once again to another episode of Unmarked Talk Wrestling. Tonight I will be covering the ECW roster. I can't exactly dissect the ECW roster as I would other shows, as it's more of a test market for new wrestlers to mingle with more experienced superstars to see if they'd fit in on one of the better shows. It's an interesting mix of beginners and established talent, which provides some interesting show, usually backloaded. The last match is usually the only one I'm interested in, and the rest I just watch out of curiosity to see what's going on with ECW. But let's take a look and see what they've got going on. Typically, I would start the show off by discussing ECW champion Jack Swagger, but he's going to have to move to the back burner for now. Tonight, we saw for the first time the return of Christian Cage to the WWE. He came out on tonight's episode, confronted and challenged Jack Swagger. Swagger told Cage that he couldn't cut it, and that's why he had to leave the WWE in the first place, which resulted in Cage punching Swagger in the face. Later on, Swagger complained to GM Teddy Long. We found out that not only is Christian signed to ECW, but Swagger will face Christian Cage in a match following his title defense at No Way Out this Sunday. I have to say, I'm very excited to see Christian Cage back with the WWE. I think it opens up so many opportunities for great storylines, although eventually I'd like to see him move to SmackDown or Raw, where there's a better lineup for him to compete with. All around, Christian has a great look and excellent in-ring skills. I loved watching him in TNA over the past couple of years, and I think it was a big blow to that company for them to lose him. Watching him perform is exciting and fun. I love his work on the mic. This is a great acquisition for the WWE, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. Next up is current ECW champion Jack Swagger. I have to admit, when I first saw him win the title from Matt Hardy, I was a little upset being such a Matt Hardy fan. However, seeing the Hardy vs. Hardy storyline that they're developing, I understood why they needed him to drop the title so he could switch brands. When it comes to the ECW Championship, I can't help but ask, what the hell were they thinking when they created that belt? It looks horrible. Every time I see it, I think they just grabbed a foam belt from one of the shops. It looks like junk. Either way, Jack Swagger is somewhat controversial as a title holder. He's rather new to the brand, and I thought perhaps they'd put the title back on someone more established like Mark Henry. His in-ring skill is probably one of the best on the show, though. His mic work could use a little bit of tweaking, but I think ECW is the right situation to teach him to improve that. He's an up-and-comer, he has a great look, and his matches are pretty entertaining. It remains to be seen how far he will go, but if he continues on his path and develops a little bit more of a powerful personality, it's very possible to see him switch brands in the future, though I must admit, the all-American American gimmick is a bit boring and overdone. If he can get more of an edge to him, then perhaps he'd be a bit more charismatic, but it's a learning process and he's in the right place to garner that experience. This next guy makes me want to throw up, and I don't mean that figuratively. The Boogeyman has a good body type. I find his look to be extremely hokey, though. He reminds me a lot of Papa Shango, and that guy was stupid when he was around 20 years ago, so I can't understand why this guy's on TV with the look they've given him. His in-ring work is decent, and maybe if he shed that stupid facade, he'd be watchable, but I find 90% of the time he comes on, I have to look away. He makes me want to throw up with that worm chewing and spitting it on people. It grosses me the hell out. I'm usually eating popcorn or potato chips when I'm watching wrestling, and every time this guy comes on, mealtime's over. He's disgusting. I'm sorry, I can't watch this guy. He doesn't interest me one bit. Next up is a duo, Alicia Fox and DJ Gabriel. When Alicia Fox first showed up on SmackDown during the whole Edge and Vicky marriage storyline, I thought, great. WWE just hired another hot woman who doesn't do much of anything. The move to ECW was interesting, and she's since then stepped into the ring and given what I consider to be a subpar performance. Perhaps she'll learn to adapt her style and become a good diva, but I honestly don't see that happening. I just don't see a potential in her. ECW has paired her up with yet another superstar who I find to be lackluster, DJ Gabriel. The most entertaining moments of their on-screen time is the ridiculous dance moves they try and pull off. Gabriel, though he does do some nice moves here and there, is too run-of-the-mill for me. There's nothing special about this guy, nothing stands out, nothing draws me in. ECW has been more of a developmental show, but I think Gabriel's just going to fall by the wayside at some point unless they reboot his personality, and unless Alicia can start popping the crowd, she isn't going anywhere either. And this begs the question, is there even a point of having divas on ECW? This next guy only requires a 3-word introduction: shooting star press. Evan Bourne is by far the most impressive member of the ECW roster. He's exciting to watch. Some of the moves he pulls off are absolutely unbelievable. That shooting star press is simply amazing. Probably the sweetest finisher to watch in the entire WWE. I love to watch this guy's matches, and I hope to see big things from him in the future. Someone like Evan Bourne really suffers from the lack of some sort of cruiserweight title or division in the WWE. By far the most entertaining superstar on the show has got to be Evan Bourne. Right now, he's sidelined with an injury, but should be making his return early next month, and I, for one, am really psyched to see where he's going to go. Finlay and Hornswoggle provide some nice comic relief. Finlay has the in-ring presence of an old-school brawler. Most of his moves aren't very pretty-looking, but he does provide a certain believability when administering an attack. I must say, though, I was never a big fan of his, and I find most of his matches to be pretty boring. ECW is probably a good spot for him, bottom of the totem pole. All in all, he seems to be more used to break in new wrestlers or lower-talent wrestlers, and although he's currently got a title shot lined up for No Way Out against Jack Swagger, I honestly don't see him winning, and he'll probably just continue to flounder on the ECW roster. Jamie Noble is a new acquisition to ECW, having moved from Monday Night Raw. He has a lot of skill and a good look, but his problem is he's just too small. He tries to come across like a brawler, which he is in a way, but just because of his size it doesn't seem believable. Now, if they were to match him up against people like Rey Mysterio and Evan Bourne, smaller-sized competitors, it would be believable for him to carry the match as a violent heel, but currently they don't seem to know what to do with him. He used to make me laugh on Raw, and his feud with William Regal was interesting for a week or two. The whole angle of him trying to impress Layla was pretty funny. However, now that he's moved to ECW, I doubt we'll hear much from him again, as I predict him lingering down there for a while before either choosing not to re-sign with the company or by being given his outright release. Katie Lee Burchill is the most entertaining diva they've got going on ECW. She plays a bitch really well, and quite frankly, I find something hot about her on-screen persona, although that might say a little bit more about me than it does about her. For a diva, she's relatively sound technician-wise, and has a pretty good look. She could be better, sometimes her moves seem a little sloppy, and she doesn't seem to have been given much of a chance to show her personality or mic skills. ECW will train her a bit more to be maybe a little more flashy, a little more outgoing, and to develop a personality, and if that doesn't happen, she's going to be stuck there for quite a while, which I think's a shame because I see a lot of potential in her. Mark Henry is a huge bastard. It's just such a shame that he lacks any personality whatsoever. I'd love to see him clash with someone the size of Batista just to see how that would turn out. However, there doesn't seem to be much to him. No charisma, nothing special about his move, everything seems very bland. Yes, he's huge, and sure, it's believable that he's crushing a lot of the people that he is, but beyond that, what is there about him that's supposed to draw me in? I'm just not interested. Even having brought Tony Atlas into the picture hasn't improved much of anything. I would say this guy is one who's going to be ECW property for quite a while. Paul Burchill is just another superstar on the ECW roster who isn't very compelling. His look is good, his in-ring work is sound, but there's nothing to this guy to make him a rising star. I've yet to watch a match of his and walk away from it any more interested in him than I was prior to the match. I don't have much to say. He's number 50 on a huge list of WWE talent who the creative team seems to have forgotten about altogether. Last but not least is Tommy Dreamer, and I have to ask the question, what the hell happened to Tommy Dreamer? As a fan of the original ECW, I loved watching this guy. He was exciting, he was funny, and he did some crazy shit. Obviously, the current incarnation of ECW is WWE's neutered version of it, and frankly, they should get rid of the E in ECW because it's not extreme anymore. I miss the old days. I miss the old Tommy Dreamer. I can't say his current persona is as a result of his own choice, or whether WWE just doesn't know what to do with him. This guy is a legend in ECW, and as far as I'm concerned, he deserves a lot more than he has. His weakness, though, is that he's technically not that fantastic. He has improved a lot since when he first arrived on the scene, but he'll probably never have the flash and flair of performers like Orton and Triple H. However, ECW is a good spot for him, and he should be the ECW champion, if for no other reason than out of respect for the original ECW. That about does it for my review of the ECW roster. There are some talented individuals, but for the most part it lives up to being WWE's bottom-tier program. However, I will keep watching to see what develops for stars like Christian Cage, Evan Bourne, and Tommy Dreamer. I'll be back soon with my SmackDown roster review, but before then I will be uploading the first episode of what will become the template for Unmarked Talk Wrestling, in which I answer questions, analyze the storylines of the shows, and give you my opinions on what should happen next. As always, please send your questions and comments, and I'll include some in my show. Thanks so much for watching.